When someone chooses to be a professional wrestler, they're essentially signing themselves up to take bumps, a chop or two to the chest, and even the odd chair shot from time to time. These are things that come with the territory. But what most definitely does not come with the territory is being attacked by wrestling fans in attendance. And for the most part, while fans are well behaved and understand there's a figurative and literal line you simply do not cross, there's always a small minority of arseholes who try to spoil the fun. I'm Adam Nicholas, this is What Culture Wrestling, and these are 10 times wrestlers were injured by the fans.
But first, I just want to talk to you guys today about today's sponsor, Manscaped.com. Earlier this year, we initially partnered with Manscaped, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it changed our lives forever. I mean, just look at these happy campers.
No, it's even smoother than that, actually. Yeah, do you want to have a feel?
I've never been more smooth down there.
And now we want to share with you the joy of the brand new Performance Package 4.0, which I have right here. Included is the brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Now, up until now, I've been using all year the Lawnmower 3.0, and let me tell you, I've never been smoother. Like, you could have put me on a water slide and I'd have just gone forever. How is that smooth? The 4.0's updated design is even better though, as replaceable ceramic blades with skin-safe technology and an LED light will help you trim with confidence. You can see everything with this, even things I don't want to see. The new wireless charging system and the new travel lock features are awesome as well. Out of the shower, your Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant has you covered when it comes to all of your clear drying needs to keep you downstairs fresh all day. On the other hand, or ball I guess, you've got your Manscaped Crop Reviver Ball Toner, which will give you a nice little midday refresh if you need it. Now, nobody tells you when you're young just how hairy these things are going to get, but fortunately the Manscaped Weed Whacker Ear and Nose Hair Trimmer is here to save the day. Seriously, plucking out nose hair really hurts, but fortunately that won't be a problem with this. Even better, for a limited amount of time, you can get 2 free gifts with your order. First up, the Shed Travel Bag. You could take the heat off. Even better, for a limited amount of time, you can get 2 free gifts with your order. First up, the Shed Travel Bag, and secondly, these lovely boxer shorts, which I absolutely swear by, they're the comfiest things ever. Also, sign up for the Peak Hygiene Plan and you'll get replenishments for your favourite products delivered straight to your door. So go to manscaped.com right now for 20% off and free international shipping when you use our promo code WHAT20. That's the promo code WHAT20 at manscaped.com. For now though, back to that video.
Number 10, Kalisto. Now yes, we realise that WWE's 205 Live brand hasn't exactly set the world alight since it started in 2016. The Cruiserweight show is largely defunct thanks to other more important programming like Raw, SmackDown and NXT, allegedly. But nevertheless, the brand does still exist, and it was still in existence very much in 2017. And back on the December 19th episode, the high-flying Kalisto was lying on the floor outside the ring after a tag match against Brian Kendrick and Jack Gallagher when someone thought it would be a good idea to throw a full, unopened bottle of water at his head. The bottle cracked Kalisto right on the mouth and he ended up recovering at ringside while medics checked him over. The man was clearly in pain and his wife Abby posted a grim picture of the injury afterwards on Twitter. She simply couldn't believe that someone in attendance would be so reckless or that a bottle of water could cause countless stitches, an MRI and a possible fracture for Kalisto. I mean, I've heard of staying hydrated, but this is ridiculous. Number 9, Raven. Now, I think it's fair to say that WCW Thunder wasn't quite the company's flagship programming. Still, it did feature one of the most alarming moments of 1998. On the 9th of April edition that year, Raven cut his standard Moby promo in the corner of the ring when suddenly, without warning, a fan pulled him out to ringside by the hair mid-speech and started ragdolling everyone's favourite Nirvana-loving wrestler. Now, many years later, Raven would tell several podcasts that he thought Kanyon was performing a run-in, so he simply rolled with it. It wasn't until he regained his bearings that Raven spotted the fan being hauled off by security. Now yes, alright, injured might be pushing it a little bit here, but in fairness, I imagine he was probably a little bit shaken up after all of that and still managed to finish his promo, because Raven is a goddamn pro. Number 8, Jeff Jarrett. Now this one comes courtesy of the memory of one Lance Storm. He replied to a recent Dave Meltzer tweet about fans chucking stuff into the ring and thus endangering wrestlers by recalling the time he watched Jeff Jarrett take a full can of soda to the head. According to Storm, Jeff didn't drop from it and continued working on his bit. That impressed the Canadian because he could see that Jarrett was in visible pain from the blow. I mean, you can't exactly blame him, can you? Think about a can of soda. Like, think about that can hitting you in the head. It's not going to tickle. Still, for a man who made his living smashing a guitar over people's heads, Maybe this is a little bit of karmic justice. Number 7, Freddie Blassie. Older workers can often be heard saying things like, the business has changed, or things just aren't the way they used to be. If they're The Undertaker, then they're referring to workers playing video games instead of cards backstage. But if they're older than that, then they're likely talking about the fact that nobody gets acid thrown in their face anymore. Yes, that's right. Acid. Well, one man who actually suffered it was Freddie Blassie, and it wasn't an isolated incident either. And not just that, but the classy legend was also stabbed a reported 21 times throughout his career, and was attacked regularly with punches and kicks. The aforementioned acid drama, however, nearly blinded him permanently too. I mean, it's almost a bit of a compliment to Blassie really, because he was so hated as a heel that people were willing to smuggle acid into an actual arena to try and wait and throw it in his face. Number 6, Shawn Michaels. In 1998, WWE organised a public workout for Mike Tyson before WrestleMania 14. This publicity stunt was designed to promote the boxing bad boys' involvement in the upcoming Steve Austin vs Shawn Michaels headliner, but it almost ended in disaster for HBK. Whilst cutting a promo in ring, Michaels was struck with a battery in the head, an attack that incensed Michaels so much that he decided to walk out and tell everyone in attendance to go f themselves. Officials managed to calm Michaels down and get him back out there to complete the segment, but he was lucky to escape without a more serious injury. For a man who was already suffering mental burnout and living his life pretty much on the edge in 1998, this didn't do Michaels any favours whatsoever. Number 5, Roman Reigns. Now I think it's fair to say in 2015, Roman Reigns wasn't exactly what you would call a fan favourite. But as much as the WWE Universe might have been rejecting Roman at that time, it wasn't his fault. It was the company's fault because they just kept forcing him down people's throats. So an unhappy crowd booing Roman Reigns is one thing, but an unhappy crowd that throws a Money in the Bank briefcase at his head is another thing entirely. But that's exactly what happened on a WWE house show back on August 8th, 2015. Reigns was fighting with Wyatt in a main event street fight when someone threw a Sasha Banks emblazoned Money in the Bank briefcase at the ring and caught him flush in the back of his head. As you can probably imagine, this was so bad the referee had to pause the action in the ring so that Roman could get checked over by doctors. Wyatt stalled for time, but footage from the aftermath shows that Reigns was pretty touch and go to be able to finish the match. Number 4, Stan Stasiak. Stan Stasiak shocked the world on December 1st, 1973 by beating Pedro Morales to win the WWF title. He dropped the belt to Bruno Sammartino on December 10th, but not before working a few more dates opposite Pedro in places like New York and Boston. During a show in the latter, Stasiak was blindsided by an attack that nobody could have predicted. An inventive fan lined up their target and blasted Stan in the leg with a dart. Worse still, the painful shot could have easily flown into someone's face or ended up striking another punter instead of the despised heel champion. The Boston Garden responded by putting up a big green net that would catch any further missiles. Thankfully, Stasiak wasn't permanently harmed, but I mean, he took a dart in the leg in the middle of a match. Out of all the weird and wonderful things you could bring to a wrestling match, maybe don't bring a dart gun. Number 3, Ole Anderson. Now while Stan Stasiak just had to wipe off some blood and get his wound checked out after being shot by a dart gun, it seems he might have got lucky. Or at least lucky compared to one Ole Anderson. The gruff veteran went under the knife for an arduous 4-hour surgery to repair damaged tendons after being stabbed in the chest and arms backstage in 1976. Ole and partner Gene had just worked a tag team bout against Tim Woods and Dino Bravo. The match had passed without incident, and it seemed like the Georgia crowd were fairly entertained. When he returned behind the curtain though, Anderson was ambushed and stabbed repeatedly by a crazed fan. Ultimately, the wrestler would need dozens of stitches to close his cuts, and he suffered through surgery too. And yet, amazingly, despite all of this, because the Andersons are simply made of tougher stuff than most, he would appear on TV just 2 days later. Number 2, Blackjack Mulligan. And speaking of being made of tougher stuff, here's another one for you. Blackjack Mulligan needed a few blood-soaked towels to stem the flow of claret after being stabbed by an invading fan on the 15th of May 1971. Like Stan Stasiak, Blackjack was wrestling Pedro Morales on the card. Also, like Stan, Mulligan was fortunate to escape with his career and his life still intact. The fan in question sprinted into the ring and stabbed Mulligan several times on the thigh. There was blood everywhere as officials quickly chucked the perpetrator out and tended to Blackjack's wounds. He needed several big bath towels to try and keep pressure on the wound, and later received a whopping 100 stitches in hospital. According to eyewitness reports, even babyfaces like Gorilla Monsoon rushed to Blackjack's aid. Remember that wrestling was different back then. Mulligan was a heel, so Gorilla would have hated him in kayfabe, something that was very much still a thing. Still, Monsoon realised the seriousness of the attack and knew he had to help. And number 1, with a bullet, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Revealed in his 2017 documentary In His Own Words, Rowdy Roddy Piper explained that he almost died back in the 80s after a fan had stabbed him an inch from his heart following his match in Raleigh, North Carolina. That, according to Piper, was one of 3 times he was stuck with a knife during his dramatic pro wrestling career, but it was by far the scariest. Piper's ability to wind audiences up became legendary over the years, but even so, there's simply no excuse for stabbing a performer for simply being good at their job. Thankfully, Roddy survived and lived to tell the tale, but it's hard not to think about that 1 inch.